You're about to get pulled over, and the officer walks up to your window and asks, "Do you have any weapons in the vehicle?" What you say in the next 3 seconds could be the difference between driving away peacefully or spending the night in jail, even if you've done nothing wrong. And here's the thing, most gun owners get this question wrong every single time. Before we dive into the exact 5 words you need to say, do me one favor right now, hit that subscribe button. Why? Because 78% of legal gun owners don't know their rights during traffic stops, and that ignorance costs people their freedom every single day. I don't want you to be one of them, so click subscribe, and let's make sure you're protected. All right, let's talk about what actually happens during these police encounters. You're driving home from the range, or maybe you just have your everyday carry on you, and you see those blue lights flash behind you. Your heart starts racing. You pull over. The officer approaches, asks for your license and registration, and then comes that question, "Do you have any weapons in the car?" Now, here's where most people panic. Some folks immediately start rambling. "Yes, officer, I have a 9mm Glock in the glove box, and I have my permit. It's legal, I promise. I'm a good person. I'm not a criminal." Others freeze up and say nothing. And some people, thinking they're being clever, say, "I don't have to tell you that." All 3 of these responses can get you into serious trouble, and I'm going to explain exactly why. First, let's understand what's really happening in this moment. The officer is conducting what's called a Terry stop, named after a Supreme Court case called Terry v. Ohio from 1968. During a Terry stop, an officer can ask you questions, and they can even frisk you for weapons, if they have reasonable suspicion that you are armed and dangerous. But here's the key part that most people miss. You have constitutional rights during this encounter, specifically your 4th Amendment right against unreasonable searches and your 5th Amendment right against self-incrimination. Now, when that officer asks if you have weapons, they're not just making small talk. They're conducting an investigation. And every single word you say can and will be used against you. Not might be used, will be used. That's not me being dramatic. That's literally what the Miranda warning says, and it applies even before you're under arrest. Let me give you a real-world example of how this goes wrong. A man in Texas, let's call him James, got pulled over for a broken taillight. Officer asks the weapon question. James, being an honest, law-abiding citizen, says, "Yes, sir, I have a pistol in my center console, and I have my license to carry." Sounds reasonable, right? Here's what happened next. The officer immediately became tense, ordered James out of the vehicle, handcuffed him, and placed him in the back of the patrol car. Then the officer searched the entire vehicle. During that search, the officer found an old ammunition box in the trunk with 3 loose rounds in it. Turns out, one of those rounds was a hollow point, which, in some circumstances and locations, can lead to enhanced charges. James ended up spending 6 hours in custody and had to hire a lawyer to fight charges that eventually got dropped. But it cost him $3,000 in legal fees and a day off work, all because of how he answered that one question. But here's the crazy part. James didn't even have to go through that. There's a better way to handle this, and it involves exactly 5 words. But before I tell you what those words are, you need to understand why they work. Quick legal note here. This is educational information based on established constitutional law, not legal advice for your specific situation. Always consult an attorney licensed in your state for personal legal guidance. The reason most responses fail is because they either give up your rights or create confrontation. When you volunteer information about your weapon, you're waiving your 5th Amendment right to remain silent. You're giving the officer information that allows them to extend the stop, search your vehicle, and potentially build a case against you even if you're completely legal. On the flip side, when you say something like, "I don't have to tell you that," in an aggressive tone, you're escalating the situation. You might be legally correct, but you're making the officer defensive and suspicious, which never ends well for you. So what's the magic phrase? What are these 5 words that protect your rights without creating conflict? Here they are. "I don't answer questions, officer." That's it. 5 words. Simple, polite, clear, and constitutionally protected. Let me break down why this works so well. First, you're not being rude or confrontational. You're stating a fact. You're exercising your right to remain silent, which the Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld. Second, you're not giving the officer any information that can be used against you. Third, you're setting a clear boundary without arguing or explaining. And fourth, you're keeping the interaction professional and brief. Now, here's something important. You need to say this calmly and respectfully. Your tone matters just as much as your words. If you say it with attitude or aggression, you're going to escalate the situation. Think of it like this. You're not fighting with the officer. You're not accusing them of anything. You're simply declining to participate in an investigation against yourself, which is your constitutional right. If you're finding this information valuable, imagine what you'll learn in my next videos where I break down the exact step-by-step protocol for every police encounter involving firearms. I cover traffic stops, home visits, checkpoint interactions, and more. Subscribe right now so you don't miss those critical breakdowns. These aren't just tips. This is information that could literally keep you out of prison. Let me tell you what happens after you say those 5 words. The officer might push back. They might say, I need to know if you have weapons for my safety. Or they might say, if you don't tell me, I'm going to assume you're hiding something. This is where most people crack and start talking. Don't do it. Here's what you do instead. You calmly repeat, I understand your concerns, officer, but I don't answer questions. I respectfully decline to answer. Notice what you're doing here. You're acknowledging the officer's statement without agreeing to it or complying with it. You're staying polite but firm. This is called asserting your rights without escalating. The officer might also ask, do you mind if I search your vehicle? And here's another place where people mess up. They think if they say no, they look guilty. But here's the truth. Consenting to a search can only hurt you. It cannot help you. Even if you think you have nothing to hide, there could be something in your car you don't even know about. A passenger could have left something. That ammunition box could have fallen under the seat months ago. You could have a pocket knife that's a 1/4 inch too long for your local ordinance. The list goes on. So when the officer asks to search, you say, I do not consent to searches. Again, calm and polite. You're not stopping them from searching if they have probable cause or a warrant. You're simply making it clear that you're not voluntarily giving up your Fourth Amendment rights. Now, let's talk about some specific scenarios because context matters. What if you're in a duty to inform state? These are states where you're legally required to immediately tell an officer you're carrying if you have a concealed carry permit. States like Ohio, Louisiana, North Carolina, and a few others have these laws. Does the 5-word phrase still work? Here's the thing. If you're in a duty to inform state, you do need to inform. But you can still do it strategically. Instead of rambling or volunteering extra information, you keep it minimal. You hand over your license and your permit together and say, Officer, I'm informing you I'm carrying as required by state law. I don't answer additional questions. You've met your legal obligation, but you haven't opened the door to an interrogation. What about states that are on duty to inform, but where officers can see your permit when they run your license? In many states, when an officer runs your driver's license, it shows them if you have a concealed carry permit. They might say, I see you have a carry permit. Are you carrying now? This is still a question, and you still have the right not to answer. Or you can say, I don't answer questions, officer. Your permit does not obligate you to tell them whether you are currently armed unless your state specifically requires it. Here's the part that shocks most people. Even if you tell the officer you have a weapon, that doesn't automatically give them the right to disarm you or search your vehicle. They need reasonable suspicion that you're a threat to do a frisk, and they need probable cause of a crime to search your car. But here's the problem. Your admission that you have a weapon can contribute to that reasonable suspicion in their mind. It gives them a reason to extend the stop and investigate further. That's why silence is so powerful. You're not giving them ammunition to use against you. Let me give you another example. A woman in Florida, we'll call her Sarah, got pulled over for speeding. The officer asked if she had weapons. Sarah said, I don't answer questions, officer. The officer asked again, more firmly. Sarah repeated, I respectfully decline to answer questions. The officer, realizing he wasn't going to get anywhere, wrote her a speeding ticket and let her go. Total interaction time, 7 minutes. She paid the ticket, no lawyer needed, no complications. That's how it's supposed to work. Hey, here's something you need to know. Only about 15% of people watching this video right now are subscribed. That means 85% of you are at risk of missing the follow-up content that explains what to do if the officer orders you out of the car, or if they threaten to bring in K9 units. Don't be in that 85%. Hit subscribe right now and join the community of gun owners who refuse to let ignorance of the law destroy their freedom. Now let's talk about what not to do. Because I see people making these mistakes constantly. Don't lie. If the officer asks if you have weapons and you say no, and then they find a gun during a lawful search, you've just committed a crime in many jurisdictions. Lying to police is a separate offense. That's why I don't answer questions is so much better than no. One is exercising your rights. The other is a potential felony. Don't get argumentative. I've seen videos online where people start quoting case law at officers, saying things like, under Terry versus Ohio, you have no right to ask me that question. Technically, you might be correct, but practically, you're just making the situation worse. Officers are human beings. When you challenge them or make them feel disrespected, they're more likely to dig deeper and make your life difficult. You can be right and still end up in handcuffs. Save the legal arguments for court if it comes to that. Don't give partial answers. Some people think they're being clever by saying, I have a legal firearm. Okay, but where is it? Is it loaded? Is it in reach? Now the officer has more questions and you've opened the door to an interrogation. Partial information is worse than no information because it invites follow-up questions. And definitely don't reach for anything without telling the officer first. If your permit is in your wallet, and your wallet is in your pocket, and the officer asks for your license, you say, "Officer, my wallet is in my right front pocket. I'm going to reach for it now." Then move slowly. This isn't about your rights anymore. This is about survival. Officers are trained to watch for threats, and sudden movements near waistbands are interpreted as potentially lethal threats. Move slowly, announce what you're doing, and keep your hands visible. Here's something most people don't know. You can actually ask if you're free to leave. After the officer asks you questions and you decline to answer, you can politely ask, "Officer, am I free to leave or am I being detained?" This is important because it clarifies the nature of the encounter. If you're free to leave, the encounter is over. If you're being detained, the officer needs reasonable suspicion of a crime. This question forces the officer to either let you go or articulate why they're keeping you there, which creates a record that can help you later if the stop was unlawful. Let's talk about body cameras and recording. Most police departments now have body cameras, and that's actually good for you if you handle the encounter correctly. If you stay calm, polite, and clearly invoke your rights, that recording proves you weren't combative or suspicious. It shows you were cooperative within the bounds of the law. On the other hand, if you can legally record the encounter yourself, do it. In most states, you have the right to record police in public. Just don't be secretive about it. Say, "Officer, I'm recording this interaction for my records." This isn't about catching the officer doing something wrong. It's about protecting yourself with evidence. Now, what happens if the officer doesn't accept your refusal to answer? What if they detain you, search you, or arrest you despite your invocation of rights? Here's the hard truth. You might not be able to stop it in the moment. Your job during the encounter is not to win an argument or prove you're right. Your job is to survive the encounter safely and preserve your rights for later legal action. That means you stay calm, you comply with lawful orders like getting out of the vehicle if ordered, and you continue to invoke your rights verbally. You say, "I do not consent to this search. I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I want to speak to an attorney." Then you shut up and wait for your lawyer. This is critical. Anything that happens after you invoke your rights improperly can be challenged in court later. If the officer searches your car without probable cause, that evidence can be suppressed. If they arrest you without reasonable suspicion, the arrest can be challenged. But you can only win those battles in court if you've clearly invoked your rights during the encounter. That's why what you say matters so much. Before we wrap up, I need you to understand something. These laws are changing constantly. Right now, there are cases moving through courts that could change how traffic stops work, how duty to inform laws apply, and what officers can and cannot do during weapon-related questioning. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're going to miss those updates. And missing those updates could mean you're following advice that's no longer valid. Click subscribe right now so you're always operating with the most current information. This isn't just about convenience, it's about your freedom. So let's bring this all together. When a police officer asks if you have weapons in your vehicle, you have constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment, and you have the right to be free from unreasonable searches under the Fourth Amendment. The 5 words that protect both of those rights are, "I don't answer questions, officer." Say it calmly, say it respectfully, and repeat it if necessary. Don't volunteer information. Don't lie. Don't argue. And don't consent to searches. If you're in a duty to inform state, give the minimum required information, and then invoke your right to silence for any follow-up questions. Remember, police officers are doing a difficult job, and most of them are trying to keep people safe. But their job is to investigate and enforce laws, and your job is to protect your own rights and freedom. Those 2 goals are sometimes in tension, and that's okay. You can respect officers while still asserting your constitutional rights. The 2 are not mutually exclusive. This information could save you from arrest, prosecution, legal fees, and a criminal record that follows you for life. It could mean the difference between a quick traffic stop and a nightmare that costs you your job, your gun rights, and your freedom. That's not an exaggeration. I've seen it happen over and over again to good people who simply didn't know their rights. Final reminder, this is educational content based on constitutional law and legal principles. It is not legal advice for your specific situation. Laws vary by state and even by local jurisdiction. If you're ever arrested or charged with a crime, immediately contact a criminal defense attorney licensed in your state. Don't wait. Don't try to talk your way out of it. Get a lawyer. If this video helped you, share it with every gun owner you know. Post it in your firearm forums, your shooting club groups, your family chats. This information is too important to keep to yourself. And hit that like button so this video reaches more people who need to see it. The algorithm pushes content that gets engagement, and every like helps another gun owner learn how to protect their rights. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing if you did. And remember, know your rights, exercise them respectfully, and stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next video where we're covering exactly what to do when officers ask to search your home. You don't want to miss that one.